The sound of rain hitting the windshield felt louder than usual, almost like it was mocking me. I sat in my old Honda Civic shivering under a thin blanket, staring at the small photo of my daughter taped to the dashboard. Her smile was the only warmth I had left. It had been 2 weeks since she passed away, and every tear I shed felt heavier than the last. I remembered the day of her funeral like it was yesterday. My heart broke all over again as I stood at her graveside, clutching a single white rose, my fingers trembling from both grief and cold. When I turned to her husband, my son-in-law Michael, hoping for comfort, he only stared at me with cold eyes. "You need to stop being dramatic," he said, his voice sharp enough to cut through the silence of the cemetery. "Pack your bags and learn to survive. You can't stay with us. It's not my problem." The words stabbed me harder than any knife could. I had lost my daughter, and now he was throwing me out like trash. I begged, "Please, Michael, just give me a few days. I have nowhere to go." He sneered and walked away, holding my granddaughter's hand. She looked back at me with confusion, too young to understand why Grandma was crying so hard. That was the last time I saw her. That night I stuffed the few clothes I owned into a duffel bag and left their house. I didn't have friends to turn to, no family nearby, only the small car my daughter had once helped me buy. It became my shelter, my kitchen, my bed. Every morning, I woke up with a stiff back and swollen eyes. I parked at the edge of a Walmart lot where no one would notice me. Some days I ate crackers and water, other days I ate nothing at all. I tried to stay strong, but the loneliness was crushing me. One evening, a security guard tapped on my window and told me I couldn't stay there anymore. I drove aimlessly until I found another empty spot behind a gas station. The cold nights felt endless, and the fear of someone breaking into my car kept me awake. But then, on the 14th night, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. It was a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, a calm voice said, "Mrs. Carter, this is Daniel, your late daughter's attorney. I've been trying to reach you. There's something you need to know." My heart raced. "What is it?" I asked, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. He paused for a moment, his tone firm. "It's about your daughter's estate. We need you to come to my office tomorrow morning. You may want to sit down for this because it's going to change everything." I froze in my seat, my breath catching in my throat. My daughter's estate? Change everything? The line went dead. I sat there trembling, staring out at the dark parking lot, my mind spinning with questions. What had my daughter left behind? Why was the lawyer calling me now? And how could this possibly change everything? I didn't sleep that night. I clutched my daughter's photo and whispered, "Sweetheart, what did you do?" As the first light of dawn crept through my car window, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was waiting for me at that lawyer's office would either break me completely or give me the power to rise again. The sun rose slowly that morning, but my heart was racing faster than ever. I washed my face with bottled water, brushed my hair with the small comb I kept in my purse, and put on the only clean sweater I had left. My daughter had always told me, "Mum, no matter what, hold your head high." I repeated her words to myself as I drove toward the lawyer's office. The building was small but neat, tucked between a diner and an old bookstore in downtown Oregon. When I stepped inside, the warmth of the heater hit me, and I almost cried just from feeling comfortable for the first time in days. The receptionist, a young woman with kind eyes, smiled at me. "Mrs. Carter, Mr. Daniels is expecting you." I walked in, my heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. Daniel, a tall man in his 40s with a serious expression, stood and shook my hand gently. "Please, have a seat." I sat down, clutching my bag on my lap. "Why did you call me?" I asked, my voice shaky. He opened a folder and looked at me with a mix of sympathy and professionalism. "Your daughter Emily prepared something before she passed. She left a will, Mrs. Carter, and you're the sole beneficiary." My mouth fell open. "Beneficiary? I don't understand. Emily didn't have much. She worked hard, but... He raised his hand gently to stop me. She owned more than you knew. She had investments, savings, and a house. A beautiful lake house, actually. It's all in your name now. I gasped, tears flooding my eyes. She never told me. Daniel nodded. She wanted it to be a surprise. She wrote a letter for you too. He handed me a sealed envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was Emily's handwriting. Mum, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. Please don't cry for me too long. I want you to live, not just survive. I've left you everything I could. That house is yours, your safe place. Promise me you'll smile again. I love you, always. I clutched the letter to my chest, sobbing quietly. My daughter had thought of me even in her last days. Daniel continued, We'll handle the paperwork. You can move in right away. But there's something else. Michael, your son-in-law, doesn't know about this. Emily made sure he wouldn't get a penny. A surge of anger and satisfaction rushed through me. For 2 weeks he had left me to rot in my car, and now he was about to get the biggest shock of his life. As I left the office, I drove toward the lake house Daniel had described. The road wound through tall pines, and soon the house came into view. It was breathtaking, white wooden panels, a wide porch, and the lake shimmering behind it. I stepped inside, and for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. I could almost hear Emily's laughter in the walls. I slept that night in a real bed, hugging her photo. But as peaceful as it was, I knew this wasn't the end. Because the next morning, Michael showed up at the lake house. I saw his truck pull into the driveway, and my heart skipped a beat. He stormed out, his face red with rage. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted. "This house belongs to my wife's memory, not you." I stood on the porch, my hands steady this time. "No, Michael," I said softly but firmly. "This house is mine. Emily left it to me." He laughed bitterly. "You think you can take what's mine? You're an old woman with nothing. I'll fight you for this." Just as he stepped closer, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel again. His voice was calm, almost smug. "Mrs. Carter, don't worry. We just filed the deed under your name. Legally, Michael can't touch a single thing, but you need to be prepared. He's not going to back down easily." I hung up and looked at Michael. "You don't scare me anymore." His face twisted with fury. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Then he stormed off, slamming his truck door. I watched him drive away, knowing this was only the beginning of something bigger. That night, as I locked the door, I felt both fear and power coursing through me. Emily had given me strength and I wouldn't let her down. But deep inside I knew Michael wasn't finished, and neither was I. The next few days at the lake house were a strange mix of peace and tension. The calm water reflected the morning sun, and for a brief moment I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild my life. But the fear of what Michael might do never left my mind. I kept the doors locked, curtains drawn, and my phone close by at all times. One morning, as I sipped coffee on the porch, I noticed tire tracks leading up the driveway. My heart sank. Someone had been here during the night. I quickly checked the locks. They were intact, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Later that day, Daniel called me again. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice tense, "I need to warn you. Michael hired a lawyer. He's contesting the will." My stomach twisted. "On what grounds?" "He's claiming Emily was pressured into leaving everything to you," Daniel replied. "It's a weak case, but it could get messy. I'll handle the legal side, but you need to be prepared emotionally. He'll likely try to intimidate you." I thanked him and hung up, my hands trembling. That evening, I heard a car engine outside. I peeked through the blinds. It was Michael's truck again. He got out, holding a bottle of whiskey, and started yelling up at the house. "You think you can steal what's mine?" he screamed. "This isn't over, old woman," I wanted to shout back, but I stayed quiet, gripping my phone in case I needed to call the police. After a while, he drove off, leaving empty beer cans in the driveway. The next morning, I gathered my courage and went into town. I needed groceries, and honestly, I needed to feel human again. At the small local store, I met a kind woman named Nancy. She noticed the worry on my face and asked if I was okay. I hesitated, but finally said, "I just moved into the lake house. My daughter left it to me, but there's trouble." Nancy frowned. "You mean Emily's place? She was such a sweet girl. Everyone loved her. Don't let that man scare you. People around here know what he's like." Her words gave me a bit of comfort. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. When I returned home, I found an envelope taped to my front door. My heart raced as I tore it open. Inside was a note in Michael's handwriting. "This house won't protect you. Leave now while you can, or I'll make sure you regret staying." My hand shook, but instead of fear, anger burned inside me. I took the note and tossed it into the fireplace, watching the flames devour it. "Not this time," I whispered. "You won't break me." That night, the storm rolled in. Thunder cracked, lightning lit up the sky, and rain pounded against the windows. As I was about to go to bed, my phone rang again. It was Daniel, and his voice was urgent. "Mrs. Carter, I need to see you first thing tomorrow. Something new has come up regarding the will, and trust me, you'll want to hear this." I asked, "What is it?" He hesitated. "Let's just say Emily left behind more than just the house, something that could shut Michael down completely." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" "You'll know tomorrow. Stay safe tonight," he said before hanging up. I stared at the dark windows, the storm raging outside. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and hope. What else had Emily left me? And why did Daniel sound so serious? As I lay in bed, lightning flashing across the room, I knew one thing: tomorrow would change everything again. Because if Emily had one more secret, it was going to turn Michael's world upside down. The morning air was still heavy from last night's storm when I drove to Daniel's office. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, and my heart raced with every mile. What could Emily have left behind that was even bigger than the house? When I arrived, Daniel was already waiting for me with a thick file in his hands. His expression was serious, but there was also a glimmer of something else: confidence. "Mrs. Carter," he said, guiding me into his office, "you might want to sit down for this." I sat, my legs trembling. "Tell me, Daniel, what's going on?" He opened the file, revealing several documents. "Emily didn't just leave you the house. She also left you controlling shares in Michael's company." I froze. "What?" Daniel nodded. Apparently, Emily had quietly invested in the business while she was married to him. Over the years, her shares grew. By the time she passed, she owned 51%, making you the majority owner now. I stared at him, speechless. "You mean I own his company?" "Yes," Daniel confirmed with a faint smile. "And that's not all. She wrote a legal clause preventing Michael from contesting the shares. If he tries, he loses his own stake." The room spun slightly. I thought back to Michael's cruel words at the funeral, his threats, his arrogance. He had no idea that his late wife had secured the ultimate revenge from beyond the grave. "What do I do now?" I asked softly. Daniel leaned forward. "You can choose to stay silent and let him hang himself with his arrogance, or you can take control and show him who holds the power." My hands shook, but inside something stronger was awakening. "I'm not going to let him win," I said firmly. That afternoon I drove back to the lake house, feeling a mix of fear and power. I barely had time to settle in when I heard the roar of Michael's truck again. He stormed out, fists clenched, rage all over his face. "You think you're safe here?" he shouted. "This house doesn't mean anything. I'm taking you to court." I walked to the porch calmly, my voice steady. "Go ahead, Michael. Fight me. But while you're busy with your tantrums, maybe you should check who owns your company now." His eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, not saying another word. His phone buzzed in his pocket and he angrily answered. I could hear shouting on the other end, voices panicking. His face turned pale as he listened. He hung up slowly, his expression a mix of shock and fury. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," I said softly. "Emily did." Michael's jaw tightened, and for a moment, he looked like a man who had just lost everything. But then his anger flared again. "This isn't over. You think owning a few shares scares me? I'll destroy you." Before I could respond, he stormed off, tires screeching as he sped away. I leaned against the porch railing, heart pounding. I had the house, I had the company, but I also knew Michael wasn't going to give up easily. He was dangerous, and desperate men did desperate things. That night, as I was locking up, I noticed movement by the edge of the trees. A shadow slipped away into the darkness. My chest tightened. Someone was watching me. I quickly called Daniel, my voice trembling. "There's someone around the property." "Stay inside," he instructed. "I'll call the sheriff. Don't open the door for anyone." I hung up and grabbed the baseball bat Emily had once kept by the door. My heart thumped loudly in my ears as I waited. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Minutes passed. Then a sudden bang echoed from the back of the house. I froze. Someone was trying to break in. The loud bang rattled the back door and my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I gripped the baseball bat tighter, my hands slick with sweat. For a moment, silence filled the house again, just the sound of my own breathing. Then came another bang, harder this time, followed by the sound of metal scraping against the lock. "Michael," I called out, my voice trembling. "If that's you, this is your last warning. I've already called the sheriff." No response. Only the crunch of footsteps on the wet porch. I backed away slowly, my eyes darting toward the phone on the kitchen counter. Before I could grab it, the back door burst open with a loud crack. The wind howled through the opening, and a figure in dark clothing stepped inside. The person froze when they saw me standing there with the bat raised. Then a flashlight beam caught their face. It wasn't Michael. It was one of his friends, a man I'd seen with him at the funeral. "You don't belong here," he growled. "Michael wants you out. You're gonna leave one way or another." My fear turned to anger. "This is my house," I said through gritted teeth. "And if you take one more step, I swear you'll regret it." He smirked and moved closer. Without thinking, I swung the bat as hard as I could. It connected with his arm, and he let out a cry of pain, stumbling backward. That was my chance. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. "Help!" I shouted. "Someone just broke into my home!" The intruder cursed and ran out the way he came, disappearing into the night, just as the sheriff's sirens wailed in the distance. When the deputies arrived, I was shaking so badly I could barely talk. They searched the area but didn't find him. "Lock everything tight and stay inside," one of the officers advised. "We'll keep an eye on the property for the next few days." After they left, I sat on the floor, clutching Emily's letter. I whispered, "I'm trying, baby. I'm fighting." The next morning, Daniel arrived in person. He looked furious when I told him what had happened. "That was no random break-in," he said. "Michael is behind this, I'm sure of it. But he's not just losing the company, there's another clause in Emily's will we haven't discussed yet." I frowned. "Another clause?" Daniel nodded. "Emily transferred all of her life insurance to you as well. It's a significant amount, Mrs. Carter, enough to secure your future and to control every financial string Michael thought he had." My eyes widened. She thought of everything. "Yes," Daniel said firmly, "but you need to be cautious. A man like him, when cornered, can become even more dangerous." Later that evening, I stood by the lake, watching the sunset. The water shimmered, peaceful and calm, but my heart knew the storm wasn't over. I had the house, the company, the insurance, but Michael still had his pride, and pride makes men reckless. As the night fell, I received a text from an unknown number. The message read, "Enjoy the house while you can. Tomorrow, everything changes." My breath caught, my hands trembled as I stared at the message. The next day was court. Daniel had prepared me, but I didn't know what tricks Michael had up his sleeve. All I knew was that I had to walk in strong, no matter what. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me jump. When dawn finally came, I dressed in the neatest outfit I had, tied my hair back, and whispered to my reflection, "You're not weak anymore." I drove to the courthouse, my stomach twisting with nerves. As I stepped out of the car, I saw Michael standing there in his expensive suit, smirking at me like a predator. "Ready to lose everything?" he sneered. I took a deep breath and looked him dead in the eye. "No, Michael. Today you're the one who's going to lose." The doors to the courtroom opened. My heart pounded as I stepped inside, not knowing that before the day ended, a shocking truth about Michael would come to light, one that would change everything yet again. The courtroom was buzzing with whispers as I walked to my seat. The air was thick with tension, and every pair of eyes seemed to follow me. Michael sat at the opposite table, his lawyer beside him, both wearing smug expressions like they had already won. Daniel leaned toward me and whispered, "Stay calm. No matter what he throws at us, remember we have the truth on our side." The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The hearing began with Michael's lawyer arguing that I had manipulated Emily into signing over her assets while she was weak and sick. Every word they spoke was a knife to my heart, painting me as some greedy woman who had preyed on her own daughter. Tears welled up, but I held them back. Daniel rose and countered their claims, presenting Emily's handwritten letters, medical records proving her clear state of mind, and witnesses who testified that she adored me and distrusted Michael. The courtroom grew tense when Daniel dropped the next bombshell. "Your Honour, we also have evidence that Michael transferred large sums of money from Emily's accounts into his own during her illness, without her knowledge." Gasps filled the room. Michael's face turned pale and he shouted, "That's a lie!" The judge banged the gavel, demanding order. Daniel didn't stop there. Additionally, Emily left behind audio recordings. In these, she clearly stated her wishes and her fears about her husband's behaviour. "We have those recordings ready to play for the court." The judge allowed it. The moment Emily's voice filled the room, my heart broke and healed all at once. She spoke of her love for me, her plans to leave everything to me, and how she suspected Michael was only waiting for her to die to take control. Michael squirmed in his seat, his jaw tight with rage. When the recording ended, the courtroom was silent. The judge's expression hardened. Given this evidence, the will stands. The house, the company, and all assets legally belong to Mrs. Carter. Furthermore, the court is opening an investigation into the financial misconduct of Mr. Michael Reynolds. My heart leapt. For the first time, I saw fear in Michael's eyes. But then, something unsettling happened. He smirked. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around, firing questions. Daniel shielded me as we made our way to the car. Michael stood by his truck, glaring at me with that wicked grin. "This isn't over," he growled under his breath as I passed. "You think the court can protect you? You have no idea what's coming." I didn't respond, but chills ran down my spine. When we got back to the lake house, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally breathe. But later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard the sound of glass shattering downstairs. I froze. The house was dark, and my heart pounded in my chest. I crept toward the stairs with the baseball bat in my hand. Another crash echoed, followed by footsteps. Someone was inside. I grabbed my phone to call the sheriff, but before I could dial, a voice from the darkness said, "You should have left when you had the chance." I spun around, swinging the bat, but a figure lunged at me, knocking it out of my hands. I screamed, struggling, until suddenly headlights flashed through the window and the sound of sirens blared. The intruder fled through the back door just as the deputies burst inside. They didn't catch him, but I knew who had sent him. Michael. The sheriff looked me in the eye and said, "We'll increase patrols around here. But ma'am, you need to be very careful. Whoever this is, they're desperate." I locked every door and window that night, my hands shaking as I sat in the living room clutching Emily's letter. Then my phone buzzed with a new message. This time it was a video. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. The video showed Michael standing in front of the lake house, holding a gas can and a lighter. He looked straight into the camera and said, "If I can't have it, no one will." The video ended abruptly, leaving me breathless. The house was surrounded by trees, dry from the recent heat. If he tried to burn it, everything, including me, would be gone. I called Daniel, my voice shaking. "He's going to set the house on fire." Daniel's voice was sharp. "Pack your things and leave immediately. I'll call the sheriff. We'll stop him before it's too late." But as I threw my things into a bag, I heard an engine roar outside. Michael's truck had just pulled into the driveway. The headlights from Michael's truck cut through the darkness like knives. My heart slammed against my chest as I peeked through the curtains. He was there, standing in the driveway with that same gas can from the video, his silhouette menacing under the moonlight. I quickly dialed 911, whispering, "He's here. He's about to burn my house down." The operator's voice was calm but urgent. "Stay inside, lock all doors, and keep yourself safe. Deputies are on their way." But I knew the deputies were at least 10 minutes out, and Michael wasn't going to wait that long. I could see the lighter in his hand, the flicker of a flame dancing against his face. I grabbed the baseball bat again, my hands trembling, and quietly slipped toward the back door. My instinct screamed at me to run, but another voice in my head, Emily's voice, said, "Stand your ground." Michael kicked at the porch steps, yelling, "You think you beat me? You think some stupid piece of paper makes you strong? I'll take it all from you." The smell of gasoline hit the air as he splashed it on the wooden railing. I couldn't breathe. Fear and rage battled inside me. Then, in one wild moment, I swung the door open and shouted, "Michael, stop this!" He turned, startled, the lighter still in his hand. "You should have left when I told you to," he roared. I took a shaky step forward. "Emily left this house to me because she knew who you really were. You can't change that by burning it down." For a split second I saw doubt flicker in his eyes. But then he smirked and flicked the lighter. The flame ignited, glowing brighter and closer to the gasoline-soaked porch. Suddenly the sound of sirens pierced the night. Red and blue lights flooded the driveway. Michael froze, his plan unravelling in seconds. Deputies jumped out of their cars, shouting commands. "Drop the lighter! Now!" Michael hesitated, then cursed and threw it to the ground. The deputies rushed forward, tackling him before he could escape. As they handcuffed him, he spat toward me, his face twisted with hate. "You'll pay for this! You think this is over?" The sheriff approached me, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now, ma'am. He won't be hurting you anymore." But I wasn't convinced. I knew men like Michael. They didn't stop until they were completely powerless. And despite his arrest, something in my gut told me this wasn't the last time I'd see that evil glint in his eyes. The deputies stayed through the night to make sure the property was secure. I sat in the living room, staring at the smouldering gasoline stain on the porch, too shaken to sleep. The next morning, Daniel arrived with urgent news. "Michael's in custody," he said. "But during the investigation, the police uncovered something you need to know." I frowned, my heart pounding. "What is it now?" Daniel opened his briefcase and laid out documents and photos. Michael wasn't just planning to burn the house. He's been siphoning money from the company, even while under investigation, and hiding it in offshore accounts. The court is going to seize everything he has. By the time this is over, he'll have nothing. My eyes widened. "Nothing?" Daniel nodded. "Emily made sure of that. She filed secret clauses with her lawyer before she died. If Michael ever acted against you or the company, all his shares and assets would automatically transfer to you." I covered my mouth, tears filling my eyes. Emily had protected me in ways I couldn't have imagined. But before I could even process the relief, the sheriff called. His voice was tense. "Mrs. Carter, we have a problem. Michael escaped during transfer this morning. He's on the run." My blood ran cold. "Escaped?" "Yes, ma'am," the sheriff said. "We believe he's headed back to your property. We're sending units, but you need to get somewhere safe, right now." I hung up, my heart pounding louder than ever. Daniel looked at me, his face pale. "Pack your things. We need to leave. Now." As we hurried to the car, I caught one last glimpse of the lake house, the home Emily had given me, the home Michael wanted to destroy. And just as we started the engine, I saw movement in the trees. A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Michael. He wasn't smiling this time. His face was cold, his eyes filled with something far worse than anger. And in his hand, he was holding a gun. The gun gleamed in the early morning light and my breath caught in my throat. Michael stood only a few yards away, his eyes fixed on me with an icy stare. Daniel froze beside me, his hand hovering over the car door. "Get out!" Michael barked, his voice cold and deliberate. "Both of you, now," Daniel whispered. "Stay calm. Don't make sudden moves." My heart pounded as we slowly stepped out of the car. Michael's hand was steady on the gun. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't ranting. He was terrifyingly composed. "You think you can take everything from me?" he snarled, his voice low but full of rage. "My house, my company, my life? You think some old woman and her lawyer can destroy me?" I swallowed hard, trying to stay strong. "Michael, Emily left all this to me because she knew the truth about you. She saw what you really were." His face twisted with rage. "Shut up! Don't you dare say her name!" Daniel stepped forward slightly, his voice calm. "Michael, put the gun down! This isn't the way!" Michael laughed bitterly. "The way? The way was supposed to be me in charge, not some useless widow living in my wife's house." He pointed the gun at me, and my legs trembled. I thought of Emily, of her letter, of everything she had sacrificed. My fear turned to something else. Anger. "You can shoot me if you want," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough to cut through the tension. "But even if you do, you've already lost. The house, the company, the money, they're all gone from your hands." Emily made sure of that. His eyes flickered, his jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he might pull the trigger. Then, from the distance, the wail of sirens pierced the air. Red and blue lights flashed through the trees. Michael's head snapped toward the sound, panic creeping into his expression. "Don't move, Michael!" a deputy's voice shouted through a megaphone. Michael's hand trembled now. He looked at me one last time, his eyes burning with hate. "This isn't over," he hissed. Before he could aim again, deputies swarmed in, guns drawn. Michael dropped his weapon as they tackled him to the ground. He screamed and cursed, but they dragged him away in handcuffs. I stood frozen, my whole body shaking. Daniel caught me before I collapsed. "It's over," he said softly. But even as the deputies loaded Michael into the police car, I wasn't sure it was truly over. I could still feel his glare burning into me, even as he disappeared from sight. Later that afternoon, the sheriff personally came to the lake house. "He's going to prison, Mrs. Carter," he assured me. "With the charges against him, attempted arson, breaking and entering, assault, attempted murder, he won't be seeing the outside world for a long time." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Thank you." That evening I sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the lake. For the first time in months, the air felt lighter. Emily's presence seemed to wrap around me like a warm blanket. I thought it was finally over. I thought I could finally breathe. But just as I was about to go inside, my phone buzzed. It was a text, from an unknown number. The message read, "You think prison can hold me? Watch your back. This isn't finished." My heart dropped. I looked out at the darkening trees, my hands trembling. Somewhere out there, Michael's shadow still lingered. And I knew. The final chapter of this battle had yet to be written. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the wooden floors, every rustle of the trees outside made me jump. I kept the baseball bat by my bed and the phone in my hand. The text replayed in my mind over and over. You think prison can hold me? Watch your back. By sunrise, I decided I couldn't live in fear. I called Daniel. We need to do something. I can't wait around for him to make his next move. Daniel's voice was firm. You're right. I've already contacted private security. They'll patrol the property 24/7, and the sheriff assured me the prison transfer is secure. Michael's threats are likely just empty words. But I knew Michael. His threats were never empty. Later that morning, as I stood on the porch sipping coffee, a black SUV pulled up. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped out, introducing himself as Mark, the head of the security team. We'll keep eyes on the property day and night. Nothing's getting past us. For a few days things were calm. The guards were professional, and their presence gave me a fragile sense of safety. I even started unpacking more boxes, trying to make the lake house truly feel like home. Then came the news report. Daniel called, his voice urgent. Turn on Channel 7 right now. I grabbed the remote and switched on the TV. The reporter's voice was shaky. Breaking news. Convicted felon. Michael Reynolds escaped from a high-security transport during a staged medical emergency. Authorities believe he had outside help. He is considered armed and extremely dangerous. The mugshot of Michael filled the screen, his cold eyes staring back at me. My stomach dropped. He's coming for me, I whispered. Daniel didn't waste time. Pack a bag. I'm sending someone to pick you up. We're moving you to a safe location until they catch him. But as I gathered my things, my phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. You can run, but you can't hide. I'm closer than you think. I froze. My eyes darted to the window and my blood ran cold. Parked across the lake, barely visible through the trees, was a dark truck, the same one Michael always drove. I called out to Mark, and within seconds, the security team sprang into action. They drove toward the truck, but by the time they got there it was gone, leaving only tire tracks in the mud. The sheriff arrived shortly after, assuring me they were setting up roadblocks and increasing patrols. He won't get far, he said. But I could see the worry in his eyes. That night, I was moved to a safe house in town, a small but secure cabin surrounded by law enforcement. Daniel stayed close, and the deputies kept watch outside. Still, sleep refused to come. Around midnight, I heard something, a faint tapping at the window. My heart froze. I crept closer, and there, etched into the glass with what looked like a knife, were the words, "Found you." Before I could scream, floodlights burst on and deputies swarmed the yard, guns drawn. They searched the area but found nothing, just the chilling message on the window. The sheriff's face was grim. He's playing with you, but we'll catch him. The next day, Daniel discovered something that turned this nightmare upside down. Michael's not working alone, he said, laying photos on the table. One of his business partners, a man named Greg Hensley, has been funding his escape and helping him stay hidden. They're after the company, and you. My knees went weak. So it's not just Michael. There's another one. Daniel nodded. Yes, but we're going to turn this around. I've gathered enough evidence to freeze Greg's accounts and cut off their resources. By tomorrow, they'll have nothing. But Michael was desperate. That evening, the security cameras at the safe house caught him creeping through the woods with a rifle in hand. Before the deputies could reach him, he fired a shot, shattering the porch light inches from where I stood. They chased him into the forest, but once again he vanished into the night. The sheriff turned to me. We're putting you under federal protection. Tomorrow morning we're moving you out of state until this is resolved. I nodded, but deep down I knew Michael wouldn't stop. That night, as I packed the last of my things, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a video. My hands trembled as I pressed play. The footage showed Michael standing in front of a cabin that looked exactly like the safe house I was in. He was smiling. "Tomorrow's your last day, sweetheart. I'll be waiting." My blood ran cold. He knew where I was. Again. And tomorrow. Everything would come to an end, one way or another. The night stretched on endlessly, every second dripping with dread. I didn't sleep. I didn't dare close my eyes. I sat in the small living room of the safe house, the baseball bat clutched in one hand, Emily's letter in the other. Outside, deputies patrolled with flashlights, their radios crackling with updates. Just before dawn, the sheriff himself came inside. "Mrs. Carter, we're moving you now. Michael's closing in. We've got federal marshals waiting at the highway to escort us." I nodded, my voice trembling. "Let's go." Daniel helped me carry my bags to the SUV parked out front. As we stepped outside, the air felt heavy, thick with tension. The woods surrounding the cabin were eerily silent. Too silent. Halfway down the gravel road, the lead deputy raised his hand. "Stop! Something's blocking the path." Up ahead, fallen logs lay across the road, clearly placed there on purpose. Before anyone could react, gunfire erupted from the trees. Bullets shattered the SUV's windshield and deputies dove for cover, shouting orders. "Get down!" Daniel yelled, pulling me to the ground behind the vehicle. My ears rang with the sound of gunshots. Through the chaos, I saw him, Michael, emerging from the trees like a ghost, rifle in hand, eyes wild. "You can't hide from me, old woman!" he screamed. Deputies returned fire, forcing him to retreat momentarily. "Go! Move her now!" the sheriff ordered. Two marshals grabbed me and pushed me into another vehicle hidden in the trees. We sped away as sirens wailed in the distance, leaving the gunfight behind. But Michael wasn't done. The road twisted around the lake, and as we rounded a corner, a truck suddenly slammed into us from the side. His truck. The SUV spun out of control, crashing into the guardrail. Glass shattered, and I screamed as metal crumpled. The marshals pulled me out, dragging me to safety as Michael stumbled out of his truck with a pistol now in his hand. "You're mine!" he roared, firing wildly. One marshal returned fire, hitting him in the shoulder. Michael screamed but kept coming, his rage fueling him. Then, out of nowhere, Daniel appeared behind him, tackling him to the ground. The gun flew into the dirt. They struggled violently, Michael snarling like an animal. The sheriff rushed in, pinning Michael down as more officers swarmed. Handcuffs clicked shut, and for the first time Michael was truly powerless. Blood streamed down his arm, his breath ragged, but his eyes still burned with hate. "It's over," the sheriff said firmly. Michael spat on the ground, glaring at me. "You think this ends with me? You'll never be safe." I stepped closer, my hands no longer shaking. "No, Michael. You're the one who's never going to be free again." They dragged him away, screaming, as the sun rose over the lake. The nightmare was finally ending. In the days that followed, Michael was transferred to a federal maximum security prison with no chance of escape. His partner Greg was arrested too, his accounts frozen, and his schemes exposed. The company was fully in my name now, thriving under new management. The lake house became my sanctuary again. The fear that had haunted me slowly faded, replaced by something stronger. Peace. One evening, I sat on the porch with Emily's letter in my lap, the water shimmering gold under the sunset. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile. "I did it, Emily," I whispered. "I survived. And I lived, just like you wanted." As the night settled in, the quiet felt different this time, not heavy with fear but full of healing. The shadows no longer scared me. Michael's threat had ended. His darkness was locked away, and I was free. For the first time in a long time, I breathed deeply and felt truly alive. And as the stars blinked above the lake, I knew my daughter's love had carried me through it all.